Hey guys, Gotham Geek Girl here, and I am super excited. I am with Karama Horne. She is the writer of Protectors of Wakanda, a history and training manual of the Dora Milaje. Karama Horne is absolutely amazing. She is very influential. She covers everything from Marvel to indie comics. She's a writer, a podcaster, a host, a critic, part to the intersection of geekdom and diversity. You can find her at cons. You can find her hosting panels. She's literally everywhere. She has bylines at Nerdist, Sci-Fi Wire, The Wrap, and this is her first novel. And I cannot wait to talk to you about this. Super excited. I learned so much from the pages that I saw, and I was like, this is going to be amazing and a game changer. So, in this exclusive in-world manual, you're going to step inside the elite society of women warriors and discover what it's like to train as a member of the Dora Milaje. Recruited from across all tribes, the selected initiates undergo intense training, both physical and mental. Passed down from Elder Dora to initiates with entries by General Okoye, Princess Shuri, and Queen Mother Ramonda, Protectors of Wakanda, reveals not only the history and foundation of the unit, but collects the strategy, the weapons, and the combat training, as well as the code of honor and nuances of service required to the margins of this treasured text. So let's find out if you have what it takes to become a member of the Dora Milaje. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey Nadia, it's so nice to see you. It's
So
so
good to see you.
I can't remember the last time we saw each other like in person.
Person.
Yeah. What's up, everybody? I'm Karama Horne, aka Theblerdgurl, and yes, I did write this book, Protectors of Wakanda, and I'm so excited to be talking to the Gotham Geek Girl all about it. So yeah, I'm excited. I mean, yeah, I'm doing a whole lot of stuff right now. Some of you have seen me at on my the Blur Girl Live podcast that I have on Twitch. Some of you have seen me over on Nerdist, and I have some other things that are in the works that are coming out. So yeah, this was a labor of love, and I'm so happy that I can finally talk about it.
Yeah, you're the perfect person for this book. I saw your name and I was like, oh my God, you're writing a book. So let's get into it. Protectors of Wakanda delves into the rich history of Wakanda, Panther lineage, and the Dora Milaje, and the characteristics of their training, ranks, rituals, and strategies. When Marvel proposed this idea, how did you become a part of this project? And what inspired you to write a book about these powerful women?
So actually somebody from the publisher, Becker and Mayer, reached out to me and I did what you're not supposed to do when because I thought they were actually reaching out to me to ask me to interview somebody from Marvel. And they were like, no, 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 no. We want you to write a book. And I was like, what? And again, since it was my first book, I was like, I don't know. Okay, I'm confused, but sure. And then when they told me what it was about, they definitely knew that it was going to be a book about the Dora Milaje. That I knew going in. Um, but working out the perspective and everything, that was a whole thing in and of itself. But yeah, they came to me and I was just honored. And I know of one person that had a hand in sort of like suggesting me, but there's still one person out there that they said was raving about me, and I do not know who this mystery person is. So whoever you are, thank you so much for this opportunity.
I love the formatting of this book. Instead of writing this as a novel or in standard comic book format, where did the idea come from to write this book as a manual from the viewpoints of characters such as Mr. Zola, Princess Regent Shuri, and Queen Ramonda?
Again, that came from my publisher, Becker and Mayer. They had done another book called A Jedi Path. And I think that also had a long name. It was like a Jedi Path, a manual for the students of the Force. And it was a similar thing that it chronicled the path of a Jedi from Padawan all the way through Master and beyond. Even like I think they talked a little bit about Force ghosts in there. So and they said they wanted to do something similar with the Dora Milaje. And I was excited, but I was also terrified because Star Wars has a very long, rich history, much of which is not contested in written form, you know? But the Dora Milaje don't. So it really was about piecing together these bits of story where they actually had been seen in the comics, um, and creating a book, a prose book about it. But this was always going to be a prose book. It was never a comic book. Um, in fact, I didn't find out till pretty late that there was even going to be art in it, because it was, when we first pitched it, it was just all about the writing. So it's a prose story based in the universe of the comics of Black Panther. It is not related to the movie, even though, yes, there are some characters that clearly cross over. But yeah, it was daunting, but we it worked out. So because A Jedi Path is also written kind of like in a journal format, um they wanted to go with that concept, and then it was up to me to sort of figure out how I was going to make that happen. And the journal is basically it is basically a found tome. Like, the concept is every Dora has a journal that she keeps when she's in her training, and when it's complete, she passes it down to a younger Dora or Kanwata, and that book also gets written in by instructors and also friends and other. So what was fun about it was finding all of these different Dora that have been throughout Marvel Comics history and being able to include them in some way, even ones that have passed on.
Can you talk to us about any of the artwork? What you're allowed to talk about, artist wise?
Yeah, well, some of it I can't talk about because it's on Marvel's site. So I know I'm clear to talk about what's on Marvel's site. Um, so the cover was drawn by Ashley A. Woods. And I wish we could have gotten more art from her, but that's all she had time for. And then some of the interiors were drawn by, I knew that I wanted my chapter headings to be art, like painted art from not necessarily a comic book artist, but a Black woman artist. And so I was thrilled when we were able to get oil painter Sheba Maya, excuse me. And if you don't know her work, please check her out because she's fantastic. And she does these incredible Afrofuturistic pieces. And so if you've seen the bald Dora Milaje, the painted image, I think it's on a lot of my headings on my profile and stuff. Um, it's from her. And a lot of the art in this book, as you've seen, and I was so excited that you were able to see this, but a lot of the art in this book is really stunning, and and all the chapter headings are from her. Then I was also able, I was thrilled that they were able to include Aletha Martinez, because not only is Aletha Martinez an incredible artist, I mean, have you seen Nubia? Like, come on, right? But she was one of the original artists on Black Panther when Christopher Priest created the Dora Milaje. So it was sort of coming full circle. She worked on the original run with Christopher Priest when Okoye and Nakia were introduced. She then also drew World of Wakanda with Roxane Gay. And I got to work with her a little on this book. I wish she could have drawn everything. But I'm so happy that it was very important that she drew examples of the different outfits from the different age groups, because cosplay is a thing, and I wanted to give people some cosplay basically outlines to use.
That's funny because that's one of the things I thought of when I was like looking at some of the pages and the like rankings and like what it means. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Like people can actually decipher like based on like fabrics and colors, like where they are. It was so cool.
And I was also really happy about the fact that she was able to include, like, it was really important to show that the Dora were from all over Africa and all over Wakanda. And I was excited that we were also able to incorporate something that I'd seen Brian Stelfreeze do, but not many people caught. And that was, some of the Dora might be Muslim, or some of them might be different traditional religions, and they have to keep their head covered, or they have to keep, their neck covered. So there's options for that. And I was very, very excited about that because I feel sometimes in cosplay, we don't think as wide and as broad as that. So that made me very excited as well.
And you can actually translate Wakandan glyphs. Can you tell us about translating the alphabet and where it derives from?
Okay, so what's really funny about this? I think this is from like a TikTok or Instagram that blew up. So there are Wakandan glyphs in the book. I actually didn't create like they weren't created by me again. I didn't do any art in this book. I only wrote the words. But the Wakandan written language, not the spoken, but the written language was created by Hannah Beechler for the first Black Panther film. And it's basically and they were all letters. There were a few words, but mostly letters. And the alphabet they created follows the syntax of the English language of Romance languages. So it is a 1-to-1 ratio. There's sort of like a different letter for A through Z. Um, I didn't come up with these letters. She did, and if you Google like Wakandan alphabet, you can find them, and that's what I used to sort of translate what I saw. Some of the frames I saw in the Wakanda Forever trailer. And I don't even know if the syntax was right. I just, in terms of a sentence, I just know that I had the letters right. Um, and then for those of you who aren't interested and are like totally nerds about this, if you want to translate words from English to Wakandan, a brother by the name of Wayne Sutton created it's a website, and I believe it's called Type Wakanda. Like, I think typewakanda.com is the name of the website. But if you Google Wayne Sutton, you'll find it. And basically you can go in, type in an English word, and it will kick out the Wakandan letters for you. So yeah, it's just a written language, and I'm just a geek about that kind of stuff. But it's not the spoken language. The spoken languages in the book are Xhosa, Swahili, Hausa, Yoruba, Igbo, and Zulu.
Intense. And how is working on this book different from any of your previous projects that you've worked
It's a book. So
on?
the longest thing I'd written before this was about 10,000 words. So, and this book is like 3 or 4 times that, 5 times that, I guess. And so I was really, really nervous. And then, but I felt better when we decided on the journal format, because then I felt like, okay, then it's like now I can take it in bite-sized, pieces. And it was just really fun to just hop, skip, and jump throughout Wakandan history and piece things together, putting and discuss like how the Dora came to be and what they uh are able to do, because I think so many people's images of the Dora, simply because there's a lot of people who are Black Panther fans that haven't read all the comics. Um, I think there's an image of them from the movies and from the TV show, and that's fine. But I was just really happy to be able to give them a backstory and a lore in this book.
Yeah, like I was saying before, I love how you did like perspectives from like different characters. So that made this even more like intriguing and interesting because it's like different positions of power. So it's pretty cool to see that.
Yeah, I'm excited about that too.
And how did you conduct your research? Can you tell us about your process and how you were able to find comic historical resources, gather research, and verify accurate research?
Okay, so that was a lot. There were, okay, besides the comics that I already own, their Comixology and Marvel got a lot of my money last summer. Because there was a lot of research, because again, I think a lot of people think of the Dora Milaje and T'Challa as being just in the Black Panther comics, but people forget that even when he first appeared in Fantastic Four, he was not in his own book. He was in a Fantastic Four comic. And so there's tons of lore that happens inside of other people's books. Jonathan Hickman is known for that. Just saying something and it's in another book. So yeah, like I had a lot of research was piecing together everything, like not just, although a lot of the lore, listen, shout out to Ta-Nehisi because he did a lot of the heavy lifting with much of the Wakandan backstory that he gave us, but there was still things there that came from Jonathan Mayberry, Jonathan Hickman, a lot of different runs, Fantastic Four, and then of course we've got some Secret Wars things stuff in there that needed to be addressed because almost everywhere that T'Challa went, the Dora were somewhere close, especially the elite guard, the people that were close to him. Not when he was out on his Avenger runs, but and so there was a lot of research there and cross referencing. And then, of course, certain things got retconned at a certain point with renumbering happened. And so I have like a huge Scrivener folder and a whole bunch of other folders that are just screenshots and images and upon images and page numbers where certain things were said, because since my publisher is not a comic book house, they're like subcontracted, by Marvel. I had to prove to them where certain things came from so that they could go back to Marvel and say, yeah, and it's really funny because there's a lot of stuff that people thought that I made up. And I'm like, I didn't make that up.
Like,
That was Jonathan Mayberry. I came up with none of that. Like, I made up this. So it's really funny how nobody, and in terms of fact checking and things like that, Marvel has an entire team of people for that. But the way licensed material works, you don't work directly with Marvel. They come in really sort of after a couple of drafts have been done, and they come through and fact check everything and make sure, your stuff lines up with. And let me be specific. They had to make sure that my stuff lined up for where they were in the comics at the time that I wrote the book, which was basically this time last year. So whatever has happened in Black Panther this year is not referenced in my book because I didn't see it.
Gotcha.
Did you face any difficulties finding references or information for clothing such as Kamwada attire, artifacts, weapons, etc.? Also, were you given much creative freedom?
I was given more freedom than I thought I was going to have, actually. But once we established sort of those boundaries, like you can't reference the movies, there were certain, I don't want to say certain Dora, but there were certain characters that I was not allowed to reference. And I got the feeling that it wasn't because I wasn't allowed to use them because they didn't like them. It was just, I think they're using the characters for something else and they didn't want me to like screw that up. So that was really more of the boundaries. I think some of this, they did give me creative freedom to a point. The only thing that they did not let me change that has always been a problem for me, this is me. Nobody in Wakanda has a last name, and that's always made me nuts. Every other, like we know Thor Odin's entire family tree, all of their names, even their nicknames, we have things like Game of Thrones, where we know again entire family lines. But nobody in Wakanda has a last name, and that's always bothered me. I couldn't change that. That was something that I couldn't change. And I think so the only thing that I would butt my head up against sometimes is Black Panther is a character that was created by white men for a predominantly white company before they really started making changes and strides. And, they didn't really even have their first Black female writer until about 2016. So this is all, there's so many things that we as Black writers want to put into the Black Panther lore, but we can only go as far as they will stretch the canon. And so that's why I said Ta-Nehisi Coates, whether or not you loved or hated his run, he did that. He stretched the canon to the point that we can do a little bit more with the characters than we could before. But yeah, that was one of the things, like not being able to change their names that bothered me. But I definitely think that the weapons part was fun for me. I just had a lot of fun not learning. I'm a martial arts fan, so let me just be clear. Like growing up, my dad always had on all of the reruns on Sunday and all of the martial arts movies and things like that. So I am a martial arts fan. So I just loved being able to dive into that. But I was also, it was a fun rabbit hole, but I also liked including fighting styles from the diaspora. So Angolan stick fighting, Haitian machete, capoeira. But then I was uh, I was mixing them in along with, Pangkat Silat from Indonesia and the weapons that go along with it and some Chinese weaponry, because the Dora Milaje have to be trained in multiple styles. But what I loved was the fact that they did not stop me. They totally allowed me to use a lot of African, like from the continent, as well as diaspora fighting techniques. And that was fun for me because I feel like I'm a big fan of being able to use history, real life history, to through fiction. And so, yeah, that was really cool. And then in terms of the outfits and things like that, I definitely was very clear on how I wanted Nahanda and her court to look. And they actually released this information a few months ago, and I was surprised because I was like, I thought y'all were going to wait until the book came out, but they didn't. So I was allowed to write and create this backstory and how the Dora Milaje were created, and I brought it all the way back to the Black Panther Nahanda. There were two women Black Panther, two women leaders of Wakanda who were Black Panthers, who were named, and I didn't name them. Ta-Nehisi Coates named them, but I just happened to make Nahanda. Turkana was the name of the other one, and she was created by actually Nnedi Okorafor. So I should say, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Nnedi Okorafor created two Black female Black Panthers, respectively, and I chose Nakanda because she's older as the founder of the Dora Milaje, and I was so thrilled that Marvel allowed me to do that. And that actually, the page that I wrote about that is actually up on the site right now, which is freaking me out. But I had a ball. I had a ball. That I actually think when there are sections that got difficult for me in terms of figuring out the lore, I would just stop and go write something about fighting, because fighting, weapons, But it was very important to me that this book not be about just fighting. And that was also important to me. The concept of a warrior woman is that she fights all the time, and that's just not sustainable. So being able to utilize these tenets of the Dora Milaje, tradition, honor, strength, courage, and compassion was important to me. And it's actually, that part was inspired by the Dora Milaje. I don't know if anybody's seen the footage of, Disney out in California, the Dora Milaje. I don't want to call it an exhibit, but they have a whole section that's dedicated to them, and where people come out dressed as the Dora and they recite what the tenets are. And when I heard them say those 5 tenets, I'm like, that's the basis for my book. That's it right there. And so that was an inspiration, as well as a little Black girl that was watching them, really excited. And I was like, okay, I'm writing this book for her, like just a little, because it's a YA book, and I'm excited. I'm just really excited for everybody to see. But yeah, there was a lot of research and a lot of back and forth, and I'm just hoping that people are inspired by it.
Absolutely. I was gonna say, like, cosplayers, like, you're gonna want to tune into all the little details, like we were talking about with the weapons. Like, there's gonna be explanations of what they mean and what they do. So you're gonna be like, oh my god, I want to do this one. Like, you can do this one, and pick.
Yeah, and that was, I think, the other thing, because I think everybody's like, oh, they have the Kimoyo beads and they have staff, and I'm like, but don't they have more than that? Like, if you look at any of the comics, they've got more than that. And also, if they're traveling all over the world, it's always bothered me, and I was able to put this in the book, but I'm not gonna give away how. But it's always bothered me that the Kimoyo beads, everybody was like, yeah, it's a bracelet. And I'm like, that's it? Like, you have this incredible technology and all you did was put it on their wrist? I don't believe that for a minute. And so I was able to develop some other things that I would love to see in a comic someday. But yeah, and even, and Aletha Martinez inspired me because I remember seeing in Nubia, I remember her images of Nubia that were she had I can't remember what the rope of, I always want to call it the rope of justice, but that's not it. The truth rope that she had it wrapped in Nubia's hair at one point, and I'm like, see what I mean? Like, we would not just wear it. We would have, earrings. We would have like
Oh, lasso
belts.
of truth, like
Lasso of truth is in her hair, so like we would absolutely wear it in a different way. And so I'm not going to give away how it is in the book, but yeah, I had a lot of fun doing that.
Yeah, that's gonna bring me to my next question. The manual features so many incredible details, like the process of meditation rituals, the importance of mental health, and the use of short-range weapons for retrieval because they can't leave vibranium weapons in the field. So this manual is loaded with fun facts. How long did it take you to put the entire book together?
It was I didn't have that long at all. I only had about 10 or 15 weeks to write this book. It was not a lot of time at all. I wish I had like a year. Like, I hear all these people that are like, "Oh, I had a whole year to research." I'm like, this would have been a very big book if I was allowed to do that. But I'm grateful for what I did have, and I'm hoping if enough people order it, I can do a deluxe edition and put in some of the stuff that got left out.
Yes. Yeah, because I thought that was incredible learning about like their meditation practices. I was like, I didn't even think that was a thing. Like you broke it down.
Yeah, and I just figured like we've only seen this one side. If you go out and you are with, your dedicated sisters and you're a fighting community and you go back home and you're living, amongst each other, granted when you graduate you don't necessarily have to live in the dorms, but you're always around each other. There's got to be a way to get rid of, what about the ones that don't come back? There's got to be a way to honor them. There's got to be a way to, you can't always be in crisis mode. I think, as we've learned in the past couple of years, you've got to have a way to bring that down, and you've got to have some place to put it. Otherwise, it festers and it becomes something else. And I think that there was a character that was like that in the World of Wakanda book, comic book rather, that Roxane Gay wrote. And I think that's an example of what happens when you don't have that time to just come down. And yeah, I think mental health would be important if you're supposed to kill people for a living.
And why do you think it's so important to share these stories?
I think it's incredibly important to share these stories because, again, there are a lot of Black people writing and expanding the world of Wakanda right now, and I'm just lucky enough to be one of them. I did a post not too long ago, but there's like over 10 or 15 books out this year alone written by Black folks. Like, there is a Nikki Giovanni chapter in one of these Black Panther books. Like, what? And I think that it's incredibly important, as we're seeing, again, we don't own these characters. I'm working on, I'm playing in somebody else's playground. But I think it's important because we have been saying for years, why won't you let Black folks write these Black characters? That they did open the door, and they have let a lot of us create these worlds. So I'm hoping that some of the authenticity and some of the real life history that I was able to put into the book, people will talk about, people will have discussions about, maybe take classes about, like, because again, I love the fact that we are in this world right now where we're using fiction to teach about real life history, things like Lovecraft Country, even things like Watchmen. We are seeing so much parallels because it seems to be easier to talk about the legacy and the history of people of color in the world, specifically Black people in the world, when people are coming through the door of fiction and then finding their way to the real life stories on their own. And I think that's very important. I also think it's very important because it's a YA novel, like who it's targeted to. I think it's important for young people to see that too.
Super excited. Protectors of Wakanda is going to be out this fall. Make sure to get your copy. And tell everyone where they can find you.
You can find me, Karama, aka the Blerdgurl, Theblerdgurl, all over the internets. But you can pre-order Protectors of Wakanda right now from your favorite local bookstore or online. It's all over. And it's Protectors of Wakanda, A History and Training of the Dora Milaje. And please pick it up. Tell me what you think of it. And I'm really excited that everybody can see it.
Absolutely, pick this up. It's super exciting. And if you want to tell us, who's been the biggest influence on you in the comics industry?
That is such a hugely difficult question because not only have I like written this fiction book, but I also write about comics, and I've interviewed tons of people in the comic book space. So it's so tough to answer that question. So what I'm going to do is narrow it down to like my book. And say that I really wanted to go out of my way to properly honor. I mean, listen, Christopher Priest created the Dora Milaje, so I obviously have to thank him and everyone who's ever built on this lore. Um, Everyone from, like I mentioned, Jonathan Hickman, Ta-Nehisi Coates, Jonathan Mayberry. I don't even understand how I forgot about him because he wrote Doom War, one of my favorite Wakanda storylines, and it's so funny because when I think of things by all of these different people, I just am I'm kind of mind blown that I get to have a book that even exists in this realm with them. And I'm not even trying to say that my book is as good as them. I'm just trying to say that I was able to write something that's even in the same universe is just huge to me. So I have been inspired by everybody who has written Black Panther lore before me.
Amazing. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us. Everybody, make sure you go pick up this book this fall.
Thank you.